What if I told you that some of the world's rarest, most valuable cars never even make it to Barrett-Jackson's auction block?
So, DC bidders, $1,300,000.
We're talking about machines so exclusive, so legendary, that they're traded in secret handshake deals worth tens of millions of dollars. Cars that make a $5 million Shelby Cobra look like pocket change. We've done a ton of research tracking down these automotive unicorns, and what we found will blow your mind. We're going beyond the bright lights of Scottsdale to uncover the shadowy world where the planet's rarest cars actually change hands. Buckle up, because we're about to dive into a world most collectors never even know exists. Look, Barrett-Jackson puts on one hell of a show. We've all seen the hammer drop on multi-million-dollar classics, watched grown men weep over a '67 Shelby, and witnessed automotive history change hands under those bright auction lights. But here's what they don't tell you. The cars that cross that famous block represent maybe 5% of the world's truly rare automotive treasures. The other 95%? They're out there, hidden in private collections, locked away in climate-controlled garages, or sitting forgotten in barns across America and Europe. These aren't just rare cars. We're talking about one-of-one prototypes, factory experimental vehicles, and machines so exclusive that their existence is barely documented. Today, we're going on a treasure hunt. We'll explore the underground network of collectors, dealers, and automotive archaeologists who specialize in finding these needle-in-a-haystack classics. From a Duesenberg that disappeared for 80 years to a Ferrari prototype that the factory tried to destroy, these are the stories Barrett-Jackson can't tell you. Part 1. The Underground Network. The Barn Find Myth versus Reality. Everyone loves a good barn find story, right? Some guy stumbles across a dust-covered Cobra in his grandfather's garage, and boom, instant millionaire. But here's the truth. Real barn finds of truly significant cars don't happen by accident anymore. There's an entire underground network of scouts, dealers, and collectors who make it their business to track down these automotive ghosts. Meet guys like Tom Cotter. You might know him from his barn find books. But what you don't see is the network of informants he's built over decades. Mechanics who remember working on rare cars in the '70s, estate sale companies who know what to look for, even postal workers who notice when certain types of car magazines stop being delivered to old addresses. The 1966 Shelby Cobra 427 Super Snake discovery. Take the story of the second Super Snake, the one that survived. For years, collectors knew only two were built. One ended up in the Pacific Ocean after a crash. The other? It vanished. The Shelby registry listed it as whereabouts unknown for over 3 decades. But a collector named Chris Ashworth never gave up. He spent 15 years following paper trails, tracking down former Shelby employees, even hiring private investigators. The breakthrough came from a mechanic in rural Nevada who remembered working on some weird supercharged Cobra in the early '80s. That car, chassis CSX 3015, was eventually found in a storage unit covered by tarps, with only 5,000 original miles. When it finally surfaced at auction in 2019, it sold for $5.5 million. But here's the kicker. Ashworth had located it 2 years earlier and tried to buy it privately for $3 million. The owner said no, wanting to see what it would bring at auction. The European connection. But America isn't the only hunting ground. Some of the world's rarest cars are scattered across European estates, many owned by families who don't even realize what they have. After World War II, countless rare vehicles were abandoned, hidden, or simply forgotten as Europe rebuilt. There's a guy named Luciano Rupolo in Italy who's made a career out of tracking down pre-war classics. His biggest score? A 1938 Bugatti, Type 57 SC Atlantic, one of only 4 ever made, that he found in a French chateau in 2009. The family had been using it as a garden ornament for 60 years. That car is now worth over $40 million. Part 2. The Holy Grails. The 1955 Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR 722. Let me tell you about the most expensive car that's never been sold. In 1955, Mercedes built a handful of 300 SLR race cars for the Mille Miglia. Chassis 722 was driven by Sterling Moss to victory in what many consider the greatest drive in motorsport history. After the race, Mercedes locked it away in their museum vault. But here's what most people don't know. There's a second 722, a backup car that was built but never raced. For decades, rumors swirled about its existence. Mercedes denied it. Collectors whispered about it. And then, in 2022, it surfaced at a private sale for $142 million, making it the most expensive car ever sold. The buyer, anonymous. The seller, a German industrialist whose family had quietly owned it since 1956. No auction house, no publicity, just a handshake deal worth more than most people's entire net worth. The Lost Duesenbergs. Before the war, Duesenberg built some of the most spectacular cars America has ever produced. The Model J and SJ were rolling works of art, each one custom-bodied and more expensive than a house. But when the company folded in 1937, many of these masterpieces simply vanished. Take chassis J563, a 1932 Model J with coachwork by Murphy. It was originally owned by a Hollywood mogul, then disappeared sometime in the 1950s. For 70 years, Duesenberg historians assumed it had been scrapped. Then, in 2019, a tip led collectors to a warehouse in Detroit. There it was, complete, original, and wearing 87 years of dust, like a badge of honor. The owner, an elderly man whose father had bought it as a project car in 1952, had no idea what he had. When experts authenticated it, the car was valued at $8 million. It had been sitting 20 feet from a busy street for decades, and nobody knew. The Ferrari prototype that wasn't supposed to exist. In 1962, Ferrari built a one-off prototype called the 250 GT Drogo. It was a radical departure from their usual designs. More aggressive, more aerodynamic, and absolutely stunning. But Enzo Ferrari hated it. He ordered it destroyed. The car was supposedly scrapped, but the craftsmen at Carrozzeria Sports Cars couldn't bring themselves to destroy such a beautiful machine. Instead, they hid it. For 60 years, it sat in a secret garage in Modena, known only to a handful of people. When the last of those craftsmen died in 2018, his son discovered the car and contacted Ferrari historian Marcel Massini. The authentication process took 2 years, but when it was complete, this destroyed prototype was valued at $25 million. Ferrari themselves tried to buy it back, but the family refused. It remains in private hands, one of the most significant Ferraris that officially doesn't exist. Part 3. The Modern Treasure Hunters. Technology changes the game. Today's car hunters use tools that would have seemed like science fiction 20 years ago. Satellite imagery helps them spot interesting shapes under car covers in suburban driveways. Social media algorithms can identify rare cars in the background of family photos. Even artificial intelligence is being used to scan online listings for cars that sellers don't realize are valuable. Wayne Carini, the guy from Chasing Classic Cars, said he uses Google Earth to scout potential barn finds. He'll spend hours virtually driving through rural areas, looking for the telltale shapes of covered cars or unusual garage configurations. It sounds crazy, but it works. He's found 3 significant cars this way, including a 1967 L88 Corvette that had been sitting in a Connecticut barn for 30 years. The estate sale specialists. There's a whole subspecies of collector who specializes in estate sales. These guys have it down to a science. They know which auction houses handle high-end estates. They've built relationships with estate sale companies, and they can spot a diamond in the rough from across a crowded garage. Rick Trewargi runs Muscle Car City in Florida, but his real talent is sniffing out rare cars at estate sales. His biggest score came from a 2015 estate sale in Michigan. The listing mentioned vintage automobiles, but when Rick showed up, he found a 1970 Plymouth Cuda convertible with the original 446-pack engine. The family thought it was just another old car. Rick bought it for $15,000. It's worth $200,000 today. The international hunt. The search for rare cars has gone global. American collectors are scouring Europe for cars that were exported decades ago. European collectors are hunting through American barns for cars that crossed the Atlantic. And everyone's looking at emerging markets where rare cars might have ended up through diplomatic or military channels. There's a collector in Japan named Yoshihiro Matsuda, who's made a fortune importing American muscle cars that were shipped overseas by military personnel in the 60s and 70s. These cars often have incredibly low mileage because they were driven sparingly on foreign bases, then stored when their owners rotated back to the States. His best find: a 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona that an Air Force colonel had shipped to Japan in 1970. The car had 12,000 original miles and had been sitting in a Tokyo garage for 40 years. Matsuda bought it from the colonel's estate for $50,000. At auction in the U.S., it brought $485,000. Part 4. The Authentication Challenge. Separating real from replica. When you're dealing with cars worth millions, authentication becomes everything. And let me tell you, the forgers are getting good. Really good. We're not just talking about fake VIN numbers anymore. We're talking about complete cars built from the ground up to fool experts. The Shelby community has been hit particularly hard. With original Cobras worth 7 figures, the incentive to create convincing fakes is enormous. Carroll Shelby himself estimated that there were 3 times as many Cobras on the road as his company ever built. But the authentication experts are fighting back with technology that would make CSI jealous. Metallurgy analysis can determine if steel was made in the right era. Paint analysis can reveal layers of history. Even the rivets and bolts are scrutinized, because a car claiming to be from 1965 shouldn't have fasteners that weren't invented until 1975. The paper trail. Documentation is everything in this world. A car without proper paperwork is like a Rolex without a serial number. It might be real, but good luck proving it. The best car hunters are part detective, part historian, and part forensic accountant. Kevin Marty runs a company that specializes in Ford documentation. His database contains production records for millions of Ford vehicles, and he can tell you not just what options a car left the factory with, but what color the interior was supposed to be and which dealer it was shipped to. He once authenticated a 1969 Boss 429 Mustang that a collector had found in Arizona. The car looked right, but something felt off. Marty's research revealed that while the VIN was legitimate, the engine wasn't original to the car. What should have been a $200,000 muscle car was actually worth about $75,000. The owner wasn't happy, but he was grateful to know the truth before he tried to sell it. The experts who make or break fortunes. In this world, there are maybe a dozen people whose opinion can make or break a multi-million-dollar deal. These are the guys who've spent their lives studying specific marks, who can spot a fake from across a parking lot, and whose authentication can add or subtract millions from a car's value. For Ferraris, there's Marcel Massini. For Porsches, there's Ryan Snodgrass. For American Muscle, there's Galen Govier. These guys are like the Supreme Court of the collector car world. Their word is final. When Massini was asked about the pressure of his job, he said, "When I authenticate a Ferrari, I'm not just saying it's real or fake. I'm potentially changing someone's life. A positive authentication can mean financial security. A negative one can mean bankruptcy." Part 5. The Future of Rare Car Hunting. The Digital Revolution. The internet has changed everything about how rare cars are found and sold. 20 years ago, you had to know a guy who knew a guy. Today, a photo posted on Instagram can lead to the discovery of $1 million classic. But it's also made the hunt more competitive. Where once a collector might have had months to negotiate for a rare find, now word spreads instantly. Social media has democratized information, but it's also made privacy nearly impossible. There's a collector in California who found a 1967 L88 Corvette through Facebook Marketplace. The seller had listed it as a 1967 Corvette, needs work, $25,000. The photos showed a rough-looking car with the hood up, and there, clear as day, was the L88 engine code. The collector was on a plane to pick it up within 6 hours of the listing going live. The generational shift. We're seeing a massive generational shift in the collector car world. The guys who bought muscle cars new in the 60s and 70s are now in their 80s and 90s. Their kids often don't share their passion for cars, which means incredible collections are hitting the market. But here's the thing. Not all of these cars are making it to public auction. Many families are selling privately to avoid the publicity and fees associated with major auction houses. This creates opportunities for savvy collectors who know how to navigate estate sales and private transactions. The international market. The hunt for rare cars has become truly global. American collectors are buying European classics, Europeans are hunting for American muscle, and collectors in Asia are driving up prices for everything. This globalization has created new opportunities, but also new challenges. Currency fluctuations can make or break deals. Shipping costs and import duties add complexity, and different countries have different standards for what constitutes proper documentation. But for collectors willing to navigate these challenges, the rewards can be enormous. Part 6. The Ultimate Finds. The $100 million Garage. Let me tell you about the most incredible private collection discovery in recent history. In 2017, a collector in Switzerland died, leaving behind what his family thought was a modest collection of old cars. When experts were called in to evaluate the estate, they found 81 cars worth over $100 million. The collection included a 1955 Mercedes 300 SL Gullwing, a 1961 Ferrari 250 GT SWB, and a 1938 Bugatti, Type 57C, that had been missing from registries for decades. But the crown jewel was a 1936 Bugatti, Type 57 SC Atlantic, one of only 4 ever made, and worth $40 million by itself. The family had no idea. They'd been using some of these priceless classics as daily drivers. The Gullwing had grocery store receipts in the glove box. The Ferrari had parking tickets from downtown Zurich. It was the automotive equivalent of finding a Picasso at a garage sale. The American dream find. But you don't have to go to Europe to find automotive treasure. In 2019, a demolition crew in Detroit was preparing to tear down an old warehouse when they discovered something incredible in the basement. A 1970 Plymouth Cuda convertible with the 446-pack engine and only 8,000 original miles. The car had been stored there since 1975, when the original owner, facing financial difficulties, had hidden it rather than sell it. He'd planned to come back for it someday, but life got in the way. The building changed hands multiple times, and eventually, everyone forgot the car was there. When it was finally extracted and authenticated, experts valued it at $300,000. But here's the kicker. The original owner was still alive. At 89 years old, he got to see his beloved Cuda again after 44 years. The family decided to keep it rather than sell it. Sometimes the best finds aren't about money at all. So there you have it, the hidden world beyond Barrett-Jackson, where the planet's rarest automotive treasures are discovered, authenticated, and traded in deals that make auction house sales look like pocket change. From Swiss basements hiding $100 million collections to Detroit warehouses concealing forgotten muscle cars, these stories prove that the greatest automotive discoveries are still out there, waiting for someone with the knowledge, persistence, and luck to find them. The next time you drive past an old barn, peek into that dusty garage, or see a car cover hiding something interesting in a driveway, remember, you might be looking at the next great automotive discovery. Because in this world, the most incredible finds often happen when you least expect them. Thanks for joining me on this journey beyond Barrett-Jackson. Hit that subscribe button if you love stories about automotive treasure hunting, and I'll see you in the next one.